So this is an ad hoc piece by myself on Theresa May and Brexit and things. So Theresa May's conference speech made it pretty clear that she's really a socialist, to the left of Tony Blair, somewhere in Gordon Brown's territory. She called for government intervention in many areas, perhaps forgetting that government only has the resources and means to intervene if it has first taken those resources from us, the people who she now thinks need state aid. As Milton Friedman was keen to point out, pretty much every avoidable problem is caused by state intervention. And if not by virtue of the state intervening, by virtue of it having taken our money, so rendering us in need of its aid. So the centre and centre-right can't trust her in politics generally, and on Brexit, having delayed the invoking of Article 50 for as long as she could, she's now said that at the end of the 2-year Article 50 notice period, the 1972 EU Law Supremacy Act will be repealed, and all EU law in force at the time will be transferred en masse into UK law. She confirmed on the Marr show that this would include the law on bananas, sausages, and all the other nonsense that is not only nonsense in its own right, but has no place in the law of the land. Accepting the most fundamental of safety standards, there's no case for national law on the shape of bananas or the recipe for sausages. Keeping EU law would also keep the UK in the common fisheries policy, a policy that has already destroyed many British coastal jobs and massacred our fish stocks. If we don't leave the policy on Brexit, it's implausible to think that the torturous exercise of extricating ourselves piece by piece will ever happen, and our fishing industry will disappear entirely, as will all of our fish. We have 2 years now to identify what specific legal changes we need post-Brexit. If it cannot be done in these 2 years, then it is foolish to imagine that it will ever be done. And the 200,000 plus pages of EU law will sit in our law books forever. You surely know the Barnett formula. It's the formula used to redistribute wealth between the nations of the UK. It was created as a bodge, a stopgap, but pragmatically accepted as everyone knew it was a one-off and would be reviewed before the next year's budget was calculated. But now, almost 50 years on, it has not been reviewed, despite everyone agreeing it is flawed. EU law will be the same. The government will never do anything unless it sees profit or benefit for itself in doing so. It will have no incentive to review EU law unless there is pressing urgent business. And even then, it will have to happen alongside business as usual, and whatever madcap scheme it's promised in its manifesto and is desperate to roll out. This EU red tape is exactly what holds the EU back, and so will hold us back in future if we keep it. The EU single market is actually a protection mechanism. It allows the EU to have its red tape without being destroyed economically by leaner, more agile economies. For the UK to venture outside the EU single market while keeping this red tape will be economic suicide. Like making a parachute landing behind enemy lines and then refusing to release your harness and insisting on dragging your canopy behind you as you look for safety. It should also be remembered that the UK Parliament has in fact had sovereignty all along. It simply chose not to use it. The 1972 Act was entirely voluntary and could have been repealed at any time, but our MPs refused to do so and blamed the EU for all our woes. But further, they refused to have a referendum on membership deliberately to frustrate the will of the people. It is our MPs who have really been called to heel by the EU referendum result, and having called them to heel, we cannot let them run away again. We cannot leave any responsibility for action in their hands, as we know from bitter experience that they will neglect it. Subscribe to, support and donate to Radio Free UK. We're going to be on their backs the whole time.